In today's threat landscape, conflict as we know it doesn't just play out on land, sea, or air. It has expanded into the cybersecurity domain by no surprise at all. Behind every headline of cyber attacks and breaches are targeted campaigns carried out by advanced methodical threat actors, each of them with unique motives, tactics, techniques, procedures, and long-term goals. One of such groups is a group called Salt Typhoon, also known as Famous Sparrow and Ghost Emperor, depending on the cybersecurity company categorizing them. This is a Chinese nation-state-backed adversary who was recently discovered to have successfully infiltrated and persisted in United States-based ISPs, telecom networks, including T-Mobile, Verizon, Samsung, and several others. This group is known to move with some stealth, a lot of patience, some precision, and intent, leaving only fragments of evidence scattered across compromised networks. And this makes it difficult, extremely difficult, to fully contain their threat activities and eradicate them completely. But that's a topic for another video. Today's video focuses on applying the discipline of cyber threat intelligence. This practice goes beyond the simple collection of data and static IOCs or indicators of compromise. For effective cyber threat intelligence, we have to uncover patterns of the threat actor, connecting the dots and transforming those raw indicators into a clear picture of the adversary's operations. It is this insight that helps us as cybersecurity teams to build better defenses through improved detections, response playbooks, automation workflows, and preventive controls that help us to neutralize known threat actors. And sometimes they help us to understand the risk that our organization might be facing based on the current cyber threat landscape. And as a cybersecurity engineer at Amazon, I've been diving deep into this discipline using threat intelligence knowledge and skills to strengthen our defenses at an extremely large scale. We'll start with a handful of IOCs linked to Salt Typhoon, and we'll use them as threads to unravel portions of their campaign. We'll use this knowledge to investigate their infrastructure, interact with and detonate suspicious samples in a sandbox, and use that knowledge to build a comprehensive actor profile. In order to accomplish this, we'll be using ANY.RUN's threat intelligence product, which is a powerful tool that combines interactive sandboxing that ANY.RUN is already known for with very strong threat intelligence that can help analysts to transform these raw clues into actionable insights. A huge shout out to ANY.RUN for sponsoring this video and being a longtime supporter of the channel. As a matter of fact, with ANY.RUN's threat intelligence lookup now available for free, all you need is a business email to get access. That means you can follow along with this lab, exploring live data and enriching the threat context around the advanced persistent threats we'll be investigating in this video. And really quick, if you're new here, I'm Day. I'm a cybersecurity engineer at Amazon with 5 years in the field. My experience spans detection engineering, cloud security, instant response, threat hunting, and most recently, threat intelligence. Before Amazon, I worked at Datadog as a cloud threat detection engineer, researching cloud threats and building detections for various cloud providers and SaaS applications. I've worked my way up from various SOC analyst roles, investigating everything from endpoint threats to cloud-based abuse, so I understand what it takes to break into this field and build a fulfilling career. I started just like many of you, learning from scratch, asking questions, and figuring it out step by step, and now I'm here to help you do the same on this channel and several other resources we provide. So, if you want to stay up to date on the cybersecurity industry and everything technical and career related, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and also check out the links below for resources, including our Discord community of almost 7,000 members, our newsletter, and other channels. So here we are within ANY.RUN, and we're specifically right now within the threat intelligence lookup of ANY.RUN. And what this actually allows us to do is to search for any sort of thing like an IP address, a URL, a domain, or a hash. As a matter of fact, where we can actually see other runs, other lookups that other people have done, right? So we can take a look at different things they've searched for, different IP addresses. And in here, we have various things we can search for, like the threat name. For example, the threat name which we might be looking for will be something like Salt Typhoon, right? So I could do something like threat name, Salt Typhoon. And here you see we get results for Salt Typhoon. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. However, I want to show the full capability of what we can search for. We can search for the threat level. We can search for the task type. Is it a file? Is it a URL? We can search for file paths, event paths, specific hashes, URLs, domain names, registry details, registry keys, registry names, and several other things. And this can allow us to build queries with normal querying language, like using and or not or even asterisks for wildcard searches to help us look for specific things that help point back to a specific threat actor. And like I said earlier on, we can look at other previous public requests where people have searched up different things like MD5 hashes or specific domain names or IP addresses. So for example, let's say I had a specific malicious SHA-256 hash of a file that I know. I can come here and see if someone else has searched for it. So I could say SHA-256 and use regular querying language and just paste that file hash here. And it would automatically refer me back to ANY.RUN threat intelligence lookup and give me an overview of this. Now, there's not much to be found about this. We can find some analysis. There's not much about domains, IPs, or URLs, but there's some details about the file. And the cool thing is we can also see specific analysis about this. Now, let's actually pivot this investigation to look for specific things and build a sort of picture around the threat actor Salt Typhoon as we know it. And one of the great ways to start off doing this is by looking at threat intelligence reports. As detection engineers or threat intelligence researchers, a lot of what we do is either reading threat intelligence reports or creating our own reports. One of the great things about the ANY.RUN platform, it has those threat intelligence reports curated for you. And it's going to be really cool when I show you Salt Typhoon, for example. So if we search for Salt Typhoon, and we'll just pick this one specifically. All right, so we are able to have an overview of Salt Typhoon attacks. So this report provides an analysis of Salt Typhoon, a threat actor known for its cyber espionage operations, targeting critical infrastructure and government entities. The report focuses on indicators observed in recent campaigns, including malware samples, exploited vulnerabilities, and activity patterns. It also highlights lookup queries useful for identifying related activity across environments. And that's one of the cool things about this. So we can actually go down here and find lookup queries for specific indicators that we can actually take these and go back and look them up within the threat intelligence lookup, and also see samples of specific things that might have actually been related to these domain names, file paths, file hashes that we can find within this report. So it's sort of this interactive, connected ecosystem of threat intelligence functionalities we can use for our research and analysis. And then it also gives us some high-level information about Salt Typhoon, that is a Chinese state-sponsored cyber espionage group that's been active since 2019. And this can actually help us to do time-bound investigations. So if we're looking for certain activities or hunting for certain activities of Salt Typhoon within our environment, we can kind of maybe limit the scope to 2019, 2020, if we're doing a retroactive hunt to go look for specific indicators of attack or compromise of specific TTPs related to Salt Typhoon. So this could be very helpful beyond just threat intelligence. If you're a threat hunter, you can take some of these things, turn them into actual TTPs you can use to then go hunt within your environment. Now, as we go down below, we see a little bit more details about it. It actually links back to some other reports. So for example, this is another report from, I believe, Trend Micro about certain things about it. And they've gathered some of the IOCs from this and use that within the platform that we can use for search. So we can actually take this search, for example, this particular SHA-256 that was already gathered by Trend Micro in this case, and use it to search up something here. And we know this is probably going to be related to Demodex, right? You can also grab this as well and just say this, or like a regular query language, or this. And we actually need to make sure we're specifying SHA-256 here. And add a final or SHA-256. And grab this third one here. And we can run a search for this. And now we get some more details back. We see some events and some specific things about this. Now, if we do a quick search within this actual report here, we can see that this was actually an indicator of compromise for a specific Trojan with this specific file name and file path. If we go back to ANY.RUN here, we see that we have one event here. We have some details about the file, some synchronization details, and pretty cool about this is we can actually take these indicators of compromise and then look them up within the threat intelligence lookup platform and find actual detonations that might relate back to these indicators of compromise. And this actually allows us to interactively analyze behaviors of the files or the domains that we're looking at without actually building our own environment to do that, and then using what we're seeing to hypothesize TTPs or extract even more IOCs to then go hunt for within our environment, because ultimately we want to use our analysis from threat intelligence to go do a hunt or to go build a detection or do an adversarial emulation to see if our environments are susceptible to these type of attacks. Now, if we go back in here and we look into this analysis here, this brings us back to the sandbox. And we can actually look through the flow of what happened here within the sandbox. So we can see here, nothing really happened, but we have full access to all the HTTP requests, all the network connections as well. So things that might be malicious that we might be able to look out for, specific indicators of compromise, we can look at the DNS requests as well. Now back here, we see other analysis as well, right? We see other things related to other cyber intrusion activities that are attributed back to Salt Typhoon. And they give us an actual threat intelligence lookup query that we can use to find recent public tasks and identify this malicious activity. So let's actually grab it and go look for it. If we grab this and go back into this right here, we can search for that. And here we're looking for this domain name, and we're using a wildcard to search for files that start with IMFSB. And obviously we get some results back for that. We see details about the domain, which we can go look at if we want to. We also have an analysis we can look into in order to interactively interface with this malware. Now, another cool thing about the platform is we can actually use Yara on the platform. So Yara is a pretty popular tool within the cybersecurity industry, used by malware researchers or threat detection engineers to identify and detect threats based off of specific conditions, or to identify specific indicators that might lead us to finding specific malicious artifacts that might be hiding within our environment. So if we go into Yara here, so now the cool thing is that we can come in here and they actually have a sample rule that they've created here, which you can run. But just in the interest of still looking for Salt Typhoon activity, I asked ChatGPT to generate me a simple Yara rule that we can use for the purpose of this video. So it gave me this. Obviously, this is the author of DayGPT because it was in collaboration with ChatGPT. Basically, it's looking for very specific IOC hits. It's looking for these 5 strings and matches any of these conditions. So we'll go ahead and run the scan. And so what anyone is going to do is it's going to search for all the different files that it can find that have any sort of relation to these strings that we're seeing here. Now, obviously, there's a lot of files that we're looking at here. So if we have a Yara rule like this, we definitely want to be a little bit more specific with it and maybe want to make sure that we're looking for specific things that we've seen or we're pretty sure about, or leverage information from an actual threat report. Now, for this particular investigation, I haven't really done a deep dive into any existing threat reports to gather out IOCs. Neither have I experienced like an actual Salt Typhoon attack where I can actually pick up specific IOCs that's in my environment to then go look using this Yara search. However, if you do have real indicators of compromise that you can use, this would be a really great way to identify several files and probably even grab more IOCs with like file hashes and all these different things. And the cool thing about this is that if you actually have your own local rule sets on your device, you can just simply add them by uploading them here. So if you already have a file or repository of Yara rules for whatever reason on your local device, you can simply just upload them here and then use that to run a search. Now, one of the most important aspects of threat intelligence is obviously the manual analysis. However, in order for us to be faster and move at the speed or even faster than the attacker, we need to have some sort of automation in place to ensure that we're actually proactively leveraging threat intelligence. And ANY.RUN has these threat intelligence feeds that you can leverage. And these feeds offer real-time actionable data in STIX, MISP, and TAXI formats. And you can integrate them into your platform using an API. Now, I'm not going to display my API key, neither am I going to show a demonstration of actually using the API. However, I'm building out a new home lab where I plan to start integrating some external tooling in there. So I will most likely be exploring actually integrating some of ANY.RUN's intelligence feeds into that home lab by building some functionality and using some script or something to use the API key to gather the data from ANY.RUN's threat intelligence feeds to enrich whatever logs or events I might have within my own personal home lab, but it's definitely worth exploring. Now, before I run up this video, let's actually do a tiny bit of a deep dive into that threat intelligence lookup query we had previously and just kind of see where it leads us to uncover some more details about this Salt Typhoon threat actor. If we grab this here and navigate back to the lookup, we can search for it. Let's make sure we have our quotes closed. And again, what I really like is that you have this interactive platform where you can go from a search to an actual sandbox with analysis and use that to kind of get a better understanding of what actually is going on here. So if we look into the sandbox here, I'm actually more interested in knowing why this is malicious. This gives us information about processes. We can actually watch through this particular video here. So let's scroll this back. So it looks like they downloaded the infected.zip file, which is right here on their desktop. They open it, and here you see all these different files within it. And as this is going on, we're seeing that ANY.RUN is alerting about all these different things happening. So we're seeing child processes being created, most likely malicious. All right, so this is where crazy stuff starts happening. We see a bunch of executables dropped. We see this file here. And if you remember, this file, this IMFSB SVC, is part of the indicators of compromise or file paths, specifically here, that we use for this search. So we can actually see its manifestation over here in this analysis. And we're seeing more and more stuff. And if we didn't want to spend the whole time looking at this, we can actually go into this particular file here, and we see that it's an executable. If we go into that and look at more information about it, we see it's an executable, and it does a few things like creating files in the program directory. It does some registry checks for supported languages. It's doing some reconnaissance here or discovery. It's grabbing the machine GUID. It's reading the computer name. So obviously stuff that malware is doing to kind of just understand the landscape which it's within. And we can see a little bit more of the actual child processes in here. If we go into the modified files, we see things that are modified here. And that's just from this particular executable. I think the only thing here that might be actually cool to see its manifestation is this particular domain name. So let's actually go into DNS requests, see if we can find the actual manifestation of this domain. And we have it right here. So it looks like this is where we see this. So it looks like probably after it does all of this stuff that it's doing maliciously, it starts to make requests to this domain, most likely for command and control and things of that sort. We can also leverage other things like the graph here, which should give us a better visualization of what we're looking at here. And so we see where it starts from, which we obviously saw was from WinRAR.exe all the way to this malicious file and its final action. And it's also nice to get an AI summary, and this tells us that the process is being used to create a service called IOBit using the sc.exe command, and this service is created with the display name Platinum User Session Wrapper, and then it's assigned that malicious file name, which this service is set to start automatically and ignore. I think also we saw some just general system discovery activity as well, which could be used to send beacons back to the mothership of a command and control system. So what began as a threat intelligence report or a few scattered indicators, a file hash here, a suspicious domain here, has transformed into a clear window into the operations of Salt Typhoon. This is the power of cyber threat intelligence, being able to convert raw data into a coherent narrative that reveals an adversary's tactics, infrastructure, and intentions. And using ANY.RUN's threat intelligence product, we were able to successfully look up different indicators of compromise and use that to identify samples which we successfully detonated in a safe environment, allowing us to interact with various malicious entities, mapping connections, and building a comprehensive picture of a little bit of this threat actor's operations. And now we can apply these insights to hunt for similar threats and TTPs within our environments, or even emulate adversarial activity to test out our security defenses. So if you're new to cybersecurity or threat intelligence, I encourage you to explore this workflow yourself and start pulling your own threats. You can use this video on the screen as a guide for a deep dive where I use the ANY.RUN platform to uncover the hidden operations of the Redline Infostator malware. I'll see you over there.